God.
What'd you think of the evening?
It was amazing. It was more than I ever thought. That this is beyond any mountain. This is about who we are and changing the world. Very.
I love the stories from the beginning, how all the people that have these monumental challenges seem like it's obvious. You either do survive or you choose not to, because it's a choice not to.
And I'm wondering if you could just sort of give a quick sort of background, a bit of a background on, you know, what the outdoors means for you and how it's sort of shaped you into who you are today.
That the outdoors gave me the biggest reason to stay alive when I was struggling with many years of suicidal depression.
I am seeing a social shift. We've seen a large social shift in the last several decades of disconnecting with nature and the outdoors. And I think that is very unhealthy generally for society. And it's a shift, it's a trend that we need to reverse. If we don't have an appreciation for it, we'll lose it, and we'll lose ourselves.
I was sick for about 4 years on from then, in and out of hospitals. Sometimes I couldn't even walk. I was so sick. And for me to feel that that was taken away from me, I actually didn't really have the appreciation that I have for the outdoors now, before then, because I never expected it for it to be taken away from me.
So I kind of went through an interesting process where, even while I was trapped, where I thought about, so here I am, I've been chasing this connection all my life since the first time I felt it on top of a mountain at 18, under the stars. But part of what I went through while I was trapped, like, okay, so here you are, you're out in the middle of nowhere, you've got a refrigerator-sized piece of rock in your lap. Are you happy now? Is this connected enough for you?
The thing, when I was sitting in the jail cell, I thought I would miss drugs or my friends that I did them with, or I had this idea of what I should be missing, and that in fact was not what I was missing. I missed nature. I kept having these daydreams or day visions about the feeling of wind on my face, or wind in my hair and sun on my face. And I really missed nature. I would try to look out the little window with bars on it to see the moon.
So the driving force really was, is there any way I can get back outside, was the big question. And starting to kind of find ways to get outside. So it was that draw to get back outside where I kind of felt most alive.
And when I was 16 and healthy enough to be able to go up Kilimanjaro with ideas, raising funds and awareness for inflammatory bowel diseases, because it's a subject that people don't like to talk about. It's about going to the washroom, it's about your digestive system. And Kilimanjaro was a way for me to kind of put IBD on a global scale and reach out to even a larger audience.
And that's what I've committed myself through art and through a group of artists called Artists for Conservation I founded in '97 to try to change that shift.
Up until that point, I don't think I really knew how important my relationship with nature was. And it became clear to me that it was the strongest relationship I had in my life, and it became clear to me that it was the most important relationship I had in my life.
There's conservation efforts out there. I mean, like Warren mentions, we need to get up, we need to stand up, we need to look out above some of the issues. But then you also say that, if we don't first address the very basic needs of humans first, it doesn't matter how much conservation efforts are going to be put in place. It just won't happen.
But if a population is under threat, if it's starving or if it's otherwise struggling to survive, conservation is the last thing on their mind. So that's what I really took away, that addressing conservation issues really, you need to, in almost all these cases, it's a humanitarian issue as well. So you really need to, if we're going to approach successfully conservation challenges and overcome them, we're also going to have to overcome some massive humanitarian issues.
As far as nature goes, it wasn't an escape. Nature is alive, and nature is constantly interacting with us. I feel this when I'm out in nature. It's conscious, and we're working against it to our own detriment.
Over 70% of the world is illiterate. How can we expect that 70% of the world to appreciate, the challenges of conservation when we're dealing with sort of issues like that? Again, it sort of comes back to humanitarian issues. We got to get our shit together across the board.
When we're talking about conservation, we really are talking about creating something different. We all have this vision. I mean, it's absolutely nuts where we're at now. I'm kind of, in a lot of ways, we talk about this a lot. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to be a human being in 2012 when we can't get our shit together enough that we're still having these issues that we're having with the environment. We all know what's happening is wrong, and yet it still happens. It's kind of embarrassing. Am I the only one? Is everybody kind of embarrassing about that? Sure. We can't rise up above them. We're kind of in trouble. So I think it's a mindset that we need to develop, is taking on challenges and moving those metaphorical mountains.
They can seem like very daunting challenges. If we look at the world, look at the state of affairs and stuff like that, and similar to what each of you had dealt with as well. I mean, those things in of themselves, could have been very daunting challenges to come over. But like Jeff, like you say, I mean, it starts with, you got to start with the individual first. You got to start with the basic, the basic needs, and also, the basic, I guess, values of the individuals.
If we can't look at the real issues in our own darkness, and I'm going to use an example of Facebook. When I post my most poignant observations on Facebook, nobody comments. It's like I didn't even post them. And when I post the most frivolous comment I can think of, I get 50 comments back, and I get people liking it left, right, and center. And I think that's a statement. Facebook is a representation of our culture. And it's a representation that nobody wants to read my post about the void. Nobody wants to read the post about human darkness. They want to read the post about the free beer at the local cinema.
It's easy to be motivated when you don't see that you have a choice. And I didn't think I had a choice. I really only had two options. I could either spend the rest of my life kind of focused on, oh wow, holy shit, I've got no legs, there's all these things I can't do. Or I could look at the other option is, I wonder what kind of life somebody can have in this situation. So
we were trying to also tell a story of how one person could make a big difference. And we were retracing the steps of this one man by the name of Carl Akeley. He was an artist, and he was an explorer, a scientist, an amazing guy with the American Museum of Natural History in New York. And 90 years ago, he died in the Congo on his second trip to the Virunga Mountains. And he dedicated his last 5 years to convincing the King of Belgium, who presided over that area at the time, to create Africa's first national park.
I learned a lot about the human shadow and human darkness, dealing with my own. Because when I did resurface and saw that the world was in the chaos that it's in, I recognized my own darkness, or the darkness that I had dealt with, and I have released a lot of it, not all of it. The darkness that I had dealt with, I saw it mirrored in the world, and I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to resurface into this perfect, commercials on television, the world's under control and we're all giving each other diamond rings and getting married and having babies.
I think the more that we do stuff like this and we talk about and we kind of hold a vision of what's possible, the easier and the more likely it is that we can move forward to creating the future, which is kind of the exciting part for me, that we get to be part of that.
Maybe you can talk about some of the things that you're focused on looking forward, like in terms of what are your next major objectives in terms of what you want to achieve, not only as an individual, but for the causes that are important to you, for the things that matter most to you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, from the very beginning, looking at an individual level for myself, as Margo was saying, with lots of different illnesses, with any illness really, depression actually is a very large thing with that. And myself, when I was going through that, there was some really tough times, and I thought I couldn't be the only one, right? There had to be others. There's so many more people I was aware of that were struggling with IBD or any illness really.
Because I've had people say, "Wow, I mean, you were outside, kind of exposed to the elements for 2 days. I couldn't have even dealt with that. Forget about the rock."
there is life after being diagnosed. You can accomplish things. And what it really came down to was just encouraging them to also share their story, for them to become an advocate for themselves. And that's what I continue to do today, is through speaking engagements like this, being able to just spread my story in hopes that others will hear it and spread them themselves.
Some people are so comfortable or lead such a cushy life that they're never exposed to nature at all, so they think that's a big deal. So for me, I think all of us, any of us that spend time in the outdoors, it's this automatic, there's an inbuilt challenging factor in it that makes us stronger in everyday life.
We need to look at our strengths and what really fulfills us. And I think that's part of the understanding the outdoors and appreciating the outdoors. It's been shown in studies, and I just know it from personal experience, an enormous amount of fulfillment comes from the outdoors. It doesn't matter how much of a couch potato you are, it can be there as long as we can show it to you. And we can all draw that inspiration to preserve it.
Because nature is for everyone, and putting your energy, if you don't put energy into nature, you have nothing.
Because it is our home, it's the only home that we've got. I mean, I've often said I'd like for us to reach a point where the environment's not even a word. I think it's actually even ridiculous that a conversation exists that we talk about saving the environment. It'd be like a fish talking about saving water. It's absurd. It's all we've got. So hopefully we'll come to a place where that conversation doesn't even exist, because it's ludicrous, really, saving the world. It's like when you're going through a supermarket checkout and you've got fruit and nuts and stuff, and people ask you if you're on a health kick. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's like, this is what food looks like, that box you've got there. I mean, God knows where that came from.
It doesn't have to be forcing ourselves into fulfilling a mission to save the world. It really is about saving what we love.